Good morning and welcome to this licensing hearing. The first item on the agenda is to elect a chair, and I understand members would like Councillor Galvin to chair the meeting. Is that agreed, members?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I'll now hand over to Councillor Galvin.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Good morning to everybody. I'm Councillor Galvin, be chairing the meeting this morning. I'm assisted by, or supported by, whichever way you wish to put it, Councillor Hook and Councillor Melly. Can I first of all ask if there are any declarations of interest from my colleagues? I don't have any. No declaration of interest. Can I ask all participants, excepting, yes, all participants to stay muted unless they are actually speaking? It will save an awful lot of trouble from dogs barking, telephones going and all the rest. Can I have your agreement, colleagues, to exclude the press and public for the determination as shown at the end of the agenda? Are you happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to the determination of the application, and I'll just run through for the benefit of those who haven't been to one of these before. The first speaker will be for the application, the applicant, and representatives will be asked following that application description to ask questions. And then we will have questions. Sorry, let me start again. The licensing manager will explain the application. The application then, applicant will address the subcommittee and present any information they wish to put to us. And we will then invite other representatives to question. There are, I think, in essence, 4 representatives, and they will then have their opportunity to make comments, and equally so, at the end of their representation, the applicant will ask questions. When we come to the end of that, there'll be a summary by the representatives and the applicant, and then we will go into a private session as agreed at the beginning for determination. I hope that's clear. If anybody has any questions as we go along, then please feel free to ask. So can I now ask?
Chair, it's Victoria from Legal Services. Is it worth at this point explaining to the meeting what your intention is with the decision on determination?
Yes, there's 2 things I need to say actually. For the representatives, this is webcast and it is going live. You do have the option to turn off your video. And lastly, as I have been reminded, we will forward the determination within 7 days to the applicant, but meanwhile it will be shown on the council's website probably this afternoon, which will just probably say yay or nay with a more detailed decision by mail. Is everybody happy with that?
So if I can just be a little bit more clear, Chair, because I know we know what's intended. So just to confirm to the participants that the committee will not return to public session after determination.
Correct, yeah. Thank you. Can we then move on to the presentation of the report? Helen Sefton, please.
Sorry, Chair, to interrupt. Can we just check that all parties have received all of the same documents, the agenda and the agenda supplement, before we ask Helen Sefton to start the process?
Can I ask that everybody has had a copy of the agenda and the agenda supplement with all documents?
If anybody hasn't received it, can they perhaps put in the chat or come on to the video or the audio now to let us know? I'm not seeing anybody.
No.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Helen, it's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. This is an application for the grant of a premises licence made by Jimmy's York Limited at 52 Low Petergate, York. The nature of the application is to allow for a restaurant and bar over 3 floors. That's the basement, ground floor, including an external courtyard, and the first floor. The licensable entertainment and supply of alcohol on and off the premises applied for was originally 10 AM to midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 10 AM to 1 o'clock, Friday and Saturday, with late night refreshment from 11 PM to midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 11 PM to 1 AM, Friday and Saturday, with the opening hours of 10 AM to midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and 10 AM to 1:30, Friday and Saturday. I will go on to explain that there have been some changes made by the applicant to these timings, and I will explain them a little bit further later on. So a copy of the application and plans can be found in the packet Annex 1. The site already has the benefit of a premises licence, and this was granted upon conversion of a justice's licence to the company Café Rouge in 2005. The applicant has stated that that licence, CYC 9267, will be surrendered upon the grant of the new application. A copy of the current licence can be found at Annex 2. An overview of the circumstances in which entertainment activities are not licensable can be found at Annex 3. As part of the application, an operating schedule is submitted by the applicant, and this shows how the licensing objectives will be met, and that appears at Annex 4. This premises is located within the cumulative impact assessment area, which was approved by the council in March 2019. The premises is not, however, located within the red zone. The assessment can be found at Annex 5. So, excuse me, I've got a sore throat today. Section 9 of the Statement of Licensing Policy, which deals with the cumulative impact area, can be found at Annex 6. I can confirm that the consultation process for this application was carried out correctly. Representations were received from North Yorkshire Police, the Council's Public Protection Team, and the Licensing Authority on the basis that the objectives of the prevention of public nuisance and the prevention of crime and disorder would be compromised if the licence was granted. Their representations can be found at Annex 7, 8 and 9. Since this report was written, the applicant has negotiated with North Yorkshire Police, the Council's Public Protection Team and the Licensing Authority, and they have agreed to alter the terms of the application and to add further conditions. Therefore, North Yorkshire Police, the Public Protection Team and the Licensing Authority have all now withdrawn their representations. The new operating schedule, which includes an amendment of hours of operation, is included as an agenda supplement, and that is in your additional papers at pages 3 to 9. The applicants have agreed to amend the application as follows. So live and recorded music have been removed entirely. The hours shall be reduced to 11 PM for the sale of alcohol Sunday to Thursday and midnight on Friday and Saturday. The premises will close at 11:30 Sunday to Thursday and midnight midnight Friday and Saturday. Late night refreshment, which is the consumption of hot food and drink, will be from 11 PM until 11:30 Sunday to Thursday and 11 PM until midnight Friday and Saturday. A raft of additional conditions, a dispersal policy and an alfresco dining policy will also be added to the operating schedule. And these are all listed in full at pages 4 to 9 of your additional agenda. Representations were received from 7 other persons who all objected to the grant of this licence, stating that the objectives of the prevention of public nuisance and the prevention of crime and disorder would be compromised if the licence were granted. Their representations can be found at Annex 11. One of the representations is made on behalf of 27 named residents and or owners of a complex of properties within this vicinity. Of the 7 listed other persons, 1 has since withdrawn their representation, and that is following the amendments to the application I've just described. So if you could please disregard representation number 5, which is at pages 95 and 96 of the original agenda. A map showing the general area of the premises is included at Annex 14. So the committee today has the following options when making your decision. And they are option 1, grant the licence in the terms applied for. Option 2, grant the licence with modified additional conditions imposed by the committee. Option 3, grant the licence to exclude any of the licensable activities to which the application relates and modify or add conditions. And option 4, reject the application. And that, Chair, is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Has any member any question to ask? Rachel? Any questions?
Not at this point, no, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does any of the applicant or any other person involved in the meeting any questions to ask? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's now up to the... Sorry? Somebody say something? Now up to the applicant and his representative to submit his information and call witnesses if necessary, and there's a maximum time for this of 15 minutes. So I don't quite know how the applicant is going to start. I have on my list that Felicity Tulloch is going to be speaking. I assume then Richard Craig, and I assume a witness, but I'm sure that Felicity will tell me if that's incorrect. Felicity, over to you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors and everyone. Yes, I was intending to present the application, but as you can see, Richard Craig and Craig Newton, who's the proposed DPS, are both here this morning as well. So if you have any questions for them, they may well be better placed to answer them. But if I may start, Chair, with my opening submissions. So yes, I represent Jimmy's. This site, the former Café Rouge site, will be their 4th premises, joining the 2 they have in Manchester and 1 in Liverpool. Whilst they're all called Jimmy's, they're all very different in style. The original site in Manchester was a live music venue. The second in Liverpool was much more of a hybrid concept with a live music venue in the basement, a ground floor bar and a first floor restaurant. And the second venue in Manchester is a restaurant. Like York, the Liverpool site is in a cumulative impact policy area, and the second site in Manchester in Ancoats is subject to a special hours policy there, where they have a licence until 11 during the week and midnight at weekends. So very similar to the application that's being sought here. So they're experienced operators, used to operating in city centre locations and in close proximity to local residents. It's a growing business, it's independent, family run, and in a year which has seen the hospitality sector hit incredibly hard, they are fortunate to still be going and thriving and looking to expand. So as Helen mentioned, this is an application for a new licence, and as she also mentioned, there is an existing licence that was in the name of Café Rouge, but when Richard acquired the site pre-Christmas, that licence was transferred into his company's name. The question was asked by some residents when we met with them last week, why we weren't simply relying or using the existing licence. So if I may touch on the reasons why we've applied for a new licence. The application was to increase the hours. It was to remove the existing conditions and replace with a new operating schedule, and also to change the layout. And I think there comes a point where if you make too many changes to a licence, it's no longer a variation, as you know, and it tips into the realms of a new licence application. So it was felt that it would be cleaner, simpler, to simply apply from scratch. But as Helen mentioned, if a suitable licence is granted today, it would be Richard's intention to surrender the existing one so that there aren't 2 licences in place. The existing licence is very dated. As was mentioned, it was grandfathered over from an old Justice's licence in 2005 when the Licensing Act came into force. It's got reference to an old children's certificate, an old supper hour certificate. It has 24-hour opening. It has very few meaningful conditions, certainly very few modern conditions that you'd expect to see on a licence nowadays. And it's very ambiguous. And so the decision was made to start from scratch with a clearer, more modern and up-to-date licence. You know the premises location more than I do, so I shan't tell you exactly where it is. You know where it is. On Low Petergate, there are some very near neighbours, notably Christine, who's here today, who lives directly above the premises, as well as others further down the road. But at ground floor level, most of the units are given over to retail. And so there is a strong commercial element as well to this part of York city centre. Café Rouge was located on the site for many years, and we would submit that this application in its amended form, which I'll go into some more detail shortly, if granted, wouldn't be out of step with the area or what is there already. So yes, the application we lodged pre-Christmas was wider in its scope. We sought later hours and the provision of regulated entertainment, and we'd like to take the opportunity once again to apologise to those residents who were alarmed by particularly reference to live and recorded music. It wasn't our intention at all to cause any distress. And since lodging the application, we've entered into extensive dialogue with all those interested parties. We've spoken with Kim at the police, Michael Golightly in the public protection team, and Leslie Cook in the licensing authority. We also hosted a Zoom meeting last Monday evening and invited all those residents who had objected to come along to have a chat through. I think almost all, if not all, attended, and it resulted in Hilary Ramley, as has been mentioned, withdrawing her representation. So I'm pleased to say that those conversations have narrowed the issues considerably. Happily, as you've already heard, Leslie, Kim and Michael have confirmed that they are now satisfied with the changes that have been made and have withdrawn their representations, but obviously they're here today to confirm that and to answer any questions that you may have. It was clear from the meeting that we had with the residents that there were two main issues. Firstly was the use of the rear courtyard, and the second was the hours at weekends. Everyone made it clear that they wanted the site brought back into use, but obviously with assurances that they weren't going to be disturbed. And we're very grateful for the support that they've shown. And we've tried to reassure them as far as we can, but unfortunately we've not managed to narrow the issues entirely, which is why we're before you this morning. So following the meeting, we circulated a revised set of conditions, which I know that you have before you, together with the removal of live and recorded music from the application and a reduction in the hours. And taken together, we would say that they provide a comprehensive suite of conditions or safeguards to make sure that the premises can trade only as a restaurant with a small ancillary bar on each floor. The premises will only trade on the ground and first floor. I know reference was made by Helen to the basement, but that is ancillary use and kitchen and backroom space. That's not licensed. In terms of the external rear courtyard, we have submitted, and I know you have in front of you, an alfresco dining policy which sets out how Richard proposes to utilise that space. It's very much going to be seasonal, given the weather on a normal day in the north of England, but it will be operated as an extension of the restaurant. So you'll see from that document that it will be for customers to be seated only. There'll be no vertical drinking out there. There'll be no smoking out there either, because that isn't conducive to pleasant dining. And whilst we agreed an 11 p.m. terminal hour for that, the use of that space with Michael Golightly, the residents wanted us to go further. And so we have agreed, as you'll see, to commence the closing of that space from 9 p.m. with the complete closure of it from 10 p.m. So no one will be allowed out of the rear of the premises post 10 p.m. If I can just turn to the issue of the hours at the weekend. The application, as you know, in its amended form, seeks the sale of alcohol until 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and midnight Friday and Saturday, with a 30-minute drinking up period thereafter. I understand Mr. Bruce and Mrs. Potter are both here today, would like to see uniformity across the week, and I think that is where we differ in our wishes. Richard and the team would be very keen to be allowed to trade that little bit later at weekends, to reflect that Fridays and Saturdays people tend to come out a little bit later because it's the weekend, and to provide that that service to customers where they believe there is a demand. We don't believe that it's excessively late. It's just an hour later than that at the weekend. But of course, that hour would still be subject to all of the conditions that have been proposed. And there's no intention to trade the courtyard any later on weekends. That would still be closed at 10 p.m. And it's no later than is currently permitted by the existing licence. The existing Café Rouge licence has the benefit of a supper hour certificate, and so those people who are still drinking post 11 p.m, having dined at the premises, can continue drinking until midnight on those days anyway. In fact, they can do that Monday to Saturday. So overall, at the end of the day, this is a slight reduction in the hours currently permitted by the Café Rouge licence. And as I've said, it's not out of keeping with those in the area. You'll know La Vecchia has a midnight licence, together with live music, in fact, and Cote over the road has a 2:30 licence at weekends. I appreciate they don't set precedents, and each application is obviously dealt with on its own merits, but we're not asking to push the ceiling point here. We're looking to make sure, if I can be brutally honest, that this site can trade successfully and they can make a success of this unit. There's obviously a balance always that needs to be struck when it comes to licensing, but that's what we're trying to achieve. Tables for diners, in terms of operationally, tables for diners are usually given to customers for 2 hours. And so if orders for food are taken until 10 p.m, then midnight on those days, it's expected that customers will still be dining at that point. And then the 30 minutes dispersal period thereafter will allow them to leave. So ordinarily, last orders will be taken for food at 10 p.m, but that's not to say that if a table of 2, for example, or 4 were to come in at 10:30, and the kitchen could accommodate them, then it would be Richard and Craig's wish to be able to serve a quick meal to those people as well. That's why we've applied for late night refreshment as well until the terminal hour. Obviously, we wouldn't want to be in breach of the licence for serving a coffee or whatever as the premises comes to a close in the evening. Richard also wants the flexibility to allow for a limited number of people just to come in for a drink, and you can see that we've limited those numbers on the revised operating schedule. And I think it's important to say that the police and the licensing authority are happy and comfortable with that. It doesn't mean that the premises will trade as anything other than a restaurant, but it just gives that little bit of flexibility because it's got to work operationally as well. For example, if a table of 4 were to come in and sit down, but only 3 wanted to eat, Richard would want to be able to offer that fourth person a glass of wine and not have to say to them, I'm afraid you can only have an orange juice or a water because you're not eating. It's not designed to make the premises trade in any other style than a restaurant, but it is designed to make it easier to enforce and to deal with, especially by the waiters and waitresses. Richard is going to be employing a significant number of waiting staff. That will be the main method in which customers are served their alcohol. It'll be a largely seated venue with just a small number of people permitted to stand at the bar. You'll know that it's quite usual if you come into a restaurant, you're not necessarily always shown your table straight away. It's quite usual to have a drink at the bar whilst your table is ready, and equally retire to the bar once you've finished eating before making your way home. So really, it's just designed to give that little bit of flexibility to a terminal hour, which Richard and Craig are confident they can operate to without causing unnecessary noise or disturbance. I just want to touch on the location in terms of the cumulative impact policy. Helen's already mentioned it. The site does fall within the area, but it is not the red area. And I think I would probably just wish to say that this isn't an application for another licensed venue. It's an existing licensed venue. We're simply applying for a new license for the reasons I've already described. It would be our view that if you were minded to grant it today, the resulting licence would be far preferable, far better, with a whole raft of conditions that are much more in keeping with the area, in keeping with licensed premises within York. It's been inputted extensively by the police and licensing authority, and they're satisfied with the terms that have been offered. So, as I said, it's always a balance when granting licences. We try to listen to the concerns that the residents have raised with us. The channels of communication are now open, notably with Christine Potter, who lives above. Ongoing conversations regarding matters that aren't directly related to licensing are taking place with Richard. And they want to be good neighbours. And so I think in summary, we just ask that the licence be granted in its amended terms. So that's the application, unless you have any questions either for myself or Richard or Craig. Thank you.
It would be better if I unmuted myself. Would you like to say anything, Craig, Richard?
No, I'm very happy.
Okay.
It's presented the reality perfectly as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Police, any
Nothing
questions?
we can add.
Sorry?
We do want to be good neighbours, obviously.
Have the police any questions?
No questions from me, Chair. Thank you.
And no councillors. Any member of the subcommittee wish to ask any questions?
I have a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Councillor
Sorry,
Manley?
Chair, can I just intervene at this point in terms of the list? After the police comes the responsible authority. So I think if you need to ask Leslie Cook, who's present.
Fine. Before you start, Councillor Melly, Leslie Cook, do you wish to make any comment?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We can come back to what councillors there are, none as such. Members of the subcommittee, Rachel.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, you referenced a 30-minute dispersal period. Is that when the dispersal policy would be in place, or would that be in place across a long time period from an earlier time in the evening or only on certain days?
Thank you, Councillor Melly. It would be in place at all times. It's designed to, if you're minded to grant the application, form part of the licence. And so there will be staff ready to implement that at any point that customers are looking to disperse.
So sorry, at any time of day, any time that anybody's leaving the premises. Okay, so just number 4 on the dispersal policy says we will ensure the removal of all bottles and drinking receptacles from any patron. It doesn't specify open ones only, so I was just wondering how this dispersal policy fits with the application for alcohol sales on site and on and off sales.
Yes, we've agreed some further conditions in the main body of the operating schedule at the request of the police that say that no open containers of alcohol shall be removed from the premises at any time. Obviously, that doesn't include the external courtyard where obviously drinking and dining can take place. But in terms of people accessing or egressing from the front of the premises, they will not be allowed to take open containers of alcohol outside with them.
Okay, so the dispersal policy says all bottles and drinking receptacles, not just open. So presumably the dispersal policy wouldn't be adhered to the letter in that case, if you would be allowing people to leave with bottles if they're sealed.
I think that particular wording there might contradict a condition agreed with the police. So it probably should say unopened, only unopened bottles or drinking receptacles can be taken outside the front, so as not to contradict the off sales point. Yeah.
Okay, and my other question, you explained that the ground floors of the neighbouring properties are mainly commercial, but just looking at the layout of the licensable area of the premises, it includes the first floor. I was just wondering if you know anything about the nature of the immediate neighbours on the first floor level. Is that residential?
I don't, I'm afraid. I'm not sure whether Richard might be able to assist.
Are we talking about the hotel next door?
I actually, although I've walked along that street many, many times, I haven't really looked up, so I'm not sure what's up on the first floor level.
I think, I mean, it's a hotel, so I'm not sure that directly to our right there is an upstairs. You would need to ask Rebecca, sorry, you'd need to ask our neighbour. It is Rebecca, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
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 Okay, I'll ask again at that point then, thank you.
I think it's a staircase going up to the landing.
Yeah, I've never been in there. No.
Yeah, I went to the toilets and I think there's a staircase.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Hook? No. And the legal advisor doesn't want to make any comment at this stage?
I do, I'm afraid, Chair.
Carry on.
Can we ask the representatives in order if they have any questions of the applicant?
That's right, yeah.
Thank you.
I hadn't moved on to page 5. Nobody wants to ask any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Where are we? We now move on to the representations. I'm going to start. The order on my list is, I have 2 different orders, but I'm assuming, am I right in saying that the police won't be making any representation or comments?
Thank you, Chair. No, as mentioned previously by Felicity, we have agreed with the applicant on the new operating schedule, conditions attached on the 2 policies that were mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has them, though, Chair.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Hook? Councillor Melly? Thank you very much. The next person is Leslie Cook. I think you're down to speak, Leslie.
Yes, Chair. Again, the same as the police. We originally submitted representations because of the nature of the original application. However, following the receipt of the amended operating hours, licensable activities and operating schedules, I can confirm that I have now withdrawn the licensing authority's representation But again, like the police, I'll take any questions if members have any.
Any questions? Councillor Melly? Councillor Hook? Thank you very much, Leslie. Any member of the public wish to ask Leslie any questions?
Am I allowed to ask a question at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So Leslie, you're from the public protection. Are you? Is that correct? Just to make sure.
No, I'm the council's licensing manager, so I'm the responsible authority for the licensing authority.
Okay. We had a question, but it's probably more pertinent to the public protection. But I'm not sure. Is there anybody from there here?
I don't believe Michael Golightly is here today. No.
No. Can I raise my question anyway?
I'm sorry. Can you raise it when you speak? I don't want to stifle anybody, but I'm trying to follow what is in essence a complicated list sat in front of my computer. So yeah, if you just raise that issue when you come to your point to speak.
Yeah.
I'm working my way down here. It is now actually representation from the public, and the first speaker is Christine Potter, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'd like to begin by saying I acknowledge and welcome the changes that the licence applicants have agreed. The removal of the live and recorded music element beyond 11 p.m. and the making of the courtyard area at the rear a no smoking area in particular are appreciated. However, although there have been reductions in the hours post 11 p.m. for other licensable activities, I remain concerned that they do not go far enough and would like to see all activity finished by 11 p.m. every night. The licence applicants are aware that there are two particular areas of concern to me and my husband that are uniquely to do with our property because of its position directly above the restaurant. I have already outlined them to Felicity, the solicitor acting for the applicants. And these issues relate to the fire doors, which are halfway down our stairs, which affect both noise levels and security, and also the rear courtyard entrance and exit, which we share, and the security issues relating to that. It is very much hoped that by discussing these issues with the applicants further, and any other necessary bodies such as the fire brigade and the property management company, we can be assured of a resolution to our concerns in addressing these specific issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, are you the lady that wants to go off fairly early?
Well, yeah, I was just trying to work out how long the meeting was going to go on.
Okay, that's fair enough. Have you any questions, members? Councillor Hook, no? Councillor Melly? Okay, thank you very much. I think our next speaker is Christopher Layton and Rebecca Hill, or next speakers between them. Over to you.
Hi, yeah, it's just myself that's going to be speaking. Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me speak. I've prepared a statement. It takes me about 10 minutes. And then I've also asked our ward councillor, Fiona Fitzpatrick, to speak for a few minutes on our behalf as well. So yeah, my name's Rebecca. My partner, who is sort of hopping in and out of screen, is Chris. We run Galtree's Lodge, the hotel next door to 52 Low Petergate. As everyone else has said, we'd like to thank everyone for giving their time to this, and we appreciate the applicant's attempts to reassure us. We do understand that these representations must have been a challenge, and we're sorry to cause problems for anybody, especially at the current time. We do have concerns that the proposed venue and required licence will negatively affect our own business, which is why we feel compelled to speak. We do also believe that there might have been additional representations were it not for the lockdown, specifically from York Minster, because they own our building and many others on the streets nearby. To give the committee some background, Galtree's Lodge is a 12-bedroom hotel at 54 Low Petergate. We've continually developed the business since taking over 2 years ago, and we have recently started to receive some recognition and awards. Our aim is to become widely recognised as one of the best boutique hotels in York, Yorkshire, and eventually beyond. The reason that I bring this up is because having what looks like a bar as our neighbouring property could seriously impact that, especially if there are bouncers, given that we practically share a doorway. In our hotel, we have 6 street-facing bedrooms, 3 bedrooms that share the wall with 52 Low Petergate, and 6 rooms that face the rear towards York Minster. Just by explanation, some of those rooms are both street-facing and share a wall, so that's why those numbers don't add up to the 12 that I mentioned earlier. Any excessive noise at all will be disruptive to our guests from the front, side, and rear. When we took over the hotel in 2018, we actually took over a 13-bedroom hotel. However, the existing team immediately warned us about the many complaints from room 1 caused by noise and vibration from Café Rouge. As a result of this, we no longer sell room 1 as a bedroom to protect our image as a great quality, quiet boutique hotel. Using extremely conservative figures, for example, if we sold that room for as little as £80 per night, which is much less than we actually sell our rooms for, and if we had just 70% occupancy, which is again lower than our average, that in itself has cost our business at least £20,000 per year as a direct impact of the neighbouring property. I mention this as an explanation as to why we are so concerned about the type of business that occupies number 52 Low Petergate. The noise in this example is from the kitchen extractor fan, which seems to need replacing or moving as it is exceptionally loud and causes extensive noise and vibrations. The fan was recently turned on by the applicants on the 15th of February, and I have a recording of the noise, which is excessive. It can be heard from standing outside York Minster, and the noise resembles that of a generator. Café Rouge stopped serving food at 9 p.m, and the kitchen fans were turned off at 10 p.m. at the latest nightly, which was an acceptable compromise. There was also a long-standing arrangement that we inherited from the previous owner of Galtrey's Lodge, whereby the Café Rouge extraction system was never turned up to its highest setting. The number of seats in the proposed Jimmy's venue is over double that of Café Rouge, totaling 138 covers, 48 on the ground floor, 60 on the first floor, and 30 in the rear yard. In contrast, Café Rouge rarely used the first floor room, and there were restrictions on their yard area due to the proximity to the Minster School. Therefore, we're concerned that the much higher custom numbers will require the fan to be used at its highest setting and cause severe disturbance to our hotel. The noise issue from the fan will really need to be resolved either way, but this is most urgent if the kitchen will be used until 11:30 during the week and until 12:30 at weekends, as it will seriously disturb our guests. Changing the type of venue and capacity of 52 Low Petergate hugely upsets our business and the living conditions of its close neighbours, which is probably why the old Café Rouge licence states that, quote, "there shall be no change in the current style of operation." Despite the noise from the extraction fan being a genuine concern, our main fear with this licence application is one of intent. We're really grateful for the amendments that have been made to the application, and if we truly believe that this were to be a restaurant concept, then we would be fine. However, the phrase rock and roll bar has been used so extensively that we have reasonable doubts that this will be the case. We feel that the term restaurant has been used following the many representations to appease us, despite the intention being that this still be a bar. The licence does not have an expiry date, and current plans or intentions today may not be the same in a few years' time. Therefore, we ask for further conditions to ensure that boundaries cannot be pushed beyond our comfort zone. Our fear is that the applicants intend to open a bar similar to their other venues, and we are concerned about a licence being stretched to the limit of its boundaries, and also about possible amendments being added at a later date to fall more in line with the type of venue that the applicants truly want to operate. If we are wrong, then the applicants do genuinely if we're wrong and the applicants do genuinely wish to run a restaurant business, then nobody loses out here. The applicants can receive a licence suitable for a restaurant and we won't be disturbed. However, on the off chance that we are correct, then the impact to our hotel business will be devastating, as will the impact to residents, specifically that of the flats above and to the side. Therefore, we feel compelled to ask the subcommittee to consider our concerns regarding the intention of the style of the venue. We fully support the opening of a new business in York, but not at the cost of another. Galtrey's Lodge has its own restaurant, so we speak from experience regarding how a sympathetic restaurant operates given our shared location. In most quality restaurants in the UK, the latest table booking would be 9 p.m, and even that would be an unpopular time. The average meal duration is 2 hours, and diners leave after their meals with tables departing as and when finished at staggered timings. We don't have to enforce last orders as all of our guests have departed before then. I appreciate what Felicity mentioned earlier about other premises in the area with later licences, but they don't use them. They don't go to the limit of that licensable time because they are a restaurant, not a bar. In contrast, in a bar, customers do stay until last orders. They stay until the last minute. They order a last round of drinks, they stay for drinking up time, and they all depart at once, possibly intoxicated, possibly making a noise. Given that the capacity of Jimmy's is 138 covers, that's possibly a lot of people leaving en masse. As the neighbouring hotel, having groups of people vacating next door at 11:30 p.m. during the week and 12:30 p.m. at weekends would seriously impact our business. The reason we have concerns regarding the intentions stem from the following evidence. First, the fact that the original licence applied for did request both the provision of late night refreshments and live or recorded music to be played until midnight Sunday to Thursday and 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. This would never have been required if the intention from the beginning was to open a restaurant. Second, the fact that the other properties in the group are overwhelmingly bars, with live music, vertical drinking and limited menus, barbecue, bar snacks and a bottomless brunch. It would seem unusual that this additional venture was not intended to follow the same format. Third, the fact that there is a very suitable restaurant licence in place from Café Rouge. Fourth, the graphics now in place on the window of 52 Low Petergate promote cocktails, beer. There's a graphic of a skull and crossbones and a famous brunch, and their famous brunch is bottomless alcohol, and a rock and roll barbecue menu. All of those things have more of a bar feel than a restaurant, and they do fall in line with their other venues, despite this one apparently being a different concept. Fifth, the fact that the information given to the press heavily reflects that of a bar and music venue. There were phrases such as rock and roll bar, beer garden, and even direct quotes saying that they will work with local musicians. Even the now edited story in the Yorkshireman states, quote, focusing solely on barbecue food, cocktails and fantastic beers. It all still sounds like more of a bar than a restaurant to us. We are aware that the applicant's solicitor is now saying that there have been misrepresentations in the press, but we do have a good working knowledge of how the press works and it does seem unlikely. Sixth, the social media for Jimmy's exclusively represents that of a bar. It doesn't represent that of a restaurant at all. 7, irrelevant of the applicant's own intentions, they do have a large following of Jimmy's fans, including 20,000 followers on Instagram, all of whom are excited to visit the Jimmy's that they know and love now in York, meaning that the clientele that visit might not necessarily respect this new restaurant style if that's to be the case. Finally, in an email from the applicant's solicitor, it was stated that the applicants, quote, have no plans whatsoever to provide live or recorded music at this premises. Yet in the Zoom meeting on Monday, the 22nd of February, it was confirmed that there will indeed be recorded music using the existing Café Rouge system. So the applicant's solicitor actually meant to say that they have no plans whatsoever to provide licensable live or recorded music, which is quite different to the misleading wording that many of us received in an email. Our concern is that what has been said is not necessarily binding, and that certain representations may have been withdrawn based on the goodwill of accepting what we have been told. To protect our business, we need to be 100% sure that these placations are enforceable. We would be really excited about the addition of a music venue or a bar in York. We are just concerned about having it as a neighbour. We worked collaboratively and respectfully alongside Café Rouge and are keen to do the same with Jimmy's. We just want to be certain that their plans will not impact our own business, and that can be done by genuinely operating as a restaurant. That's the end of what I've got to say. I have also asked our ward councillor, Fiona Fitzpatrick, to speak as our witness.
Thank you very much. Would the applicant like to ask any questions of Rebecca?
Councillor Galvin, this is the point for Councillor Fitzpatrick to give her evidence as Rebecca Hill's witness.
Well, I'm reading from my notes, but I'll accept your and we'll ask questions later.
I think that's what Miss Hill's just asked to happen. Yeah. Is that right, Rebecca?
Yeah. As a witness.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a witness. Well, you've got 5 minutes. So, right, fine. Councillor Fitzpatrick, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm pleased to be able to speak as a witness for Rebecca and to elaborate on things she said. If I can say at the outset, first of all, to the applicants that certainly us councillors in York recently in full council, you may know this, are fully supportive of live music in terms of music venues. We're one of the few places across the country that are promoting very positively having music venues. I know you've had links with fibbers, that's fantastic, and there is a gap there in the market without a doubt. I know that as city centre councillor. Equally, I live in the city centre myself, so I just want to dispel any kind of myths there might be that people who live in the city centre shouldn't expect peace and quiet. I don't expect peace and quiet. I love the vibrancy of being in a city centre and all that comes along with it, all the cheek by jowl living of businesses and restaurants. I was asked by Indie York, by the chair of Indie York, would I speak to Rebecca, would I talk to Rebecca about this application? And I have done so. And I have to say, even apart from knowing Rebecca, I've eaten fairly regularly at the restaurant there. And I know the boutique hotel next door. And it is quite specifically a quiet hotel with a restaurant. So I think, I support the notion of what Jimmy's are doing. I know Liverpool, I know the Bold Street's location. Bold Street's quite different to Petergate, I would assert. I certainly don't oppose this, and I don't think Rebecca does. We don't oppose the application, but consideration needs to be given to the neighbours and to the type of business that is immediately next door. And if conditions can be met, and I think the things that Councillor Melly talked about, I was particularly interested in, if things can be done along those lines on dispersal, and also, as Rebecca said, about the extractor fan outside that has caused a nuisance for a long time. I think if we can be absolutely clear on dispersal and all of these things can be met, then that might be okay. I would just like to finish by saying that that area is a heritage area. There are properties there that are owned by the Minster. An artist across the road in her 70s briefly has said to me who she's friendly with Rebecca and their hotel. She is concerned, really. She's rented there for the last 40 years. She's just a bit worried that it might change the ambience of the street. So no objections to Jimmy's as such, but just for the two applicants to be fully conversant and understanding and considerate of the neighbours in the street. And I think you're almost a success, the applicants, of your own publicity, really, on social media in particular, because it has kind of frightened people into what it is you think you might be going to do here. So I suppose it is surprising that you've changed the offer so significantly from what you have in other areas, but you've obviously thought that through. And I welcome what you have to offer to York. I possibly think a different venue might have been better, but we are looking at what we've got in front of us. And as long as there is consideration for neighbours and for the hotel next door and for Rebecca and the business that she's running, then, hopefully we can make it work. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I think if my reading of the rules and regulations are concerned, the applicant can question each of the representatives as it goes along and their witnesses for a maximum of 5 minutes. Would you like to ask any questions?
Sorry, Chair. I'm confused where we are in the procedure.
I'm confused as well.
we need to ask
item 24 on page 5.
Yes. We need to ask the other representatives if they have any questions of Miss Hill now she's finished her presentation.
It does tell me that after each presentation, but I'm quite happy to abide by your ruling.
Thank you.
We can then move on to the next witness, representative, who is Stephen Bruce.
Sorry, Councillor Galvin, I might be confusing you here, but in relation to what Rebecca Hill and her witness have just said, it's not moving on to another representative to make their presentation. It's asking them if they have questions of Miss Hill. We might be at cross purposes or we might be at the same place.
According to mine, I'm quite happy to be advised, but my minutes suggest that the applicant can ask questions of Rebecca Hill at this point.
Thank you.
That's what I was really going to say. That's what I was trying to say. And they have, I think, 5 minutes to ask those questions.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, are you happy with that, Victoria?
I think we just need to, what we just need to make sure is that everybody's getting the fair opportunity to ask everybody questions after they've made their summary. I think we're both on the same page, aren't we, Councillor?
Absolutely. I did actually miss the first speaker, but she was wanting to get off. But as I wind up the meeting, I shall ask everyone whether they've had a fair crack or not, because I believe that everybody should have a fair crack of the whip. So,
thank you, Chair.
Craig, I think it's over to you to ask any questions of Rebecca. Can I call you Rebecca? Of Rebecca Hill. Over to you, and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take less than that. I don't think questioning an objector is conducive to partnership working or trying to foster good working relationships. I will have things to say when I sum up to address some of the things that Rebecca has said, but I don't intend to question her or cross-examine her. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I can then move on to Stephen Bruce, who's the final representative. Stephen Bruce, please.
Chair, sorry, I have a question for this representative. Is now a time to ask?
Sorry, you're absolutely right, Rachel. Yeah, please.
Sorry, Rebecca, are you still there?
I am, yes.
Hi, sorry. So from what you were saying, it sounds like you have already been in touch in conversations with the applicant through this process.
Yeah, so there was a Zoom meeting held on the 22nd.
Okay, so I was just wondering, so in the, is it the operating schedule? Yeah, in the operating schedule, it says, no noise shall emanate from the premises, nor vibration be transmitted through the structure of the premises, which gives rise to nuisance. I was just wondering if that had come up in conversation, if there'd been any conversations about how they might ensure that they meet that. It sounds like the responsibility is on the applicant to manage the noise level and insulation and that sort of thing to make sure that no noise passes through to the bedrooms that you were describing that share a wall. I was just wondering if there'd been any conversations that reassure you that that will happen.
No, there hasn't, and that was why I wanted to raise a question earlier to public protection, because actually, if you read the, it was about 110 pages that got sent out in advance of this meeting. We were quite concerned because public protection have agreed with the applicant, or I'm not sure exactly how it worked, to remove the following conditions as they are deemed unachievable. And those two conditions are: noise from amplified music or voices shall not be as such to cause a noise nuisance to occupants of nearby premises, and no noise shall emanate from the premises or vibration be transmitted through the structure of the premises, which gives rise to nuisance. So those two conditions that would have been extremely poignant to us have apparently been removed by public protection, as public protection have deemed them not achievable.
Right, okay. It looks like they've been replaced by a condition about a documented noise management plan to be approved by City of York Council, which hasn't been approved yet, but needs to be approved within 2 months of the licence being granted.
Yep.
Do you feel that that's a suitable replacement to those conditions?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to check that with you. Thanks.
Councillor Hook.
Nothing.
Okay, thank you very much. Where are we now? I think that's taken care of all the. Oh no, sorry, Steve Bruce.
Good morning.
Bruce. Good morning.
Good morning, Stephen Bruce.
Trying to get in front of myself. It's all right.
Well, this morning I speak in the capacity of representing 25 owners and residents as a local residential complex who are likely to be impacted by noise and public nuisance, which could lead to crime and disorder if an inappropriate alcohol licence is given to Jimmy's York Limited. We have engaged in some constructive dialogue over the past 2 weeks, both with the applicant's solicitor and also in a Zoom meeting directly with the applicants. As supporters of business within the city, we all wish to see business succeed. However, the parameters under which businesses operate should be mindful of the impact which they have within the confines of their surroundings. In the case of Jimmy's, this is the many residents who populate the immediate area. Whilst agreement has been made on important points, namely the courtyard closing at 9 p.m. and no recorded or live music being played at the venue, the final key point on which we have yet to agree upon is the licensing hours on Friday and Saturday, they being too late whilst ever there is no proposed condition that alcohol is ancillary to food. To date, we have been unable to reach any agreement on this most important of points for a venue occupying a listed building within a conservation area and, crucially, within a street which occupies many residential properties. We are disturbed that there is nothing in the proposed licence or conditions that prevents Jimmy's from having groups of drinkers who do not have to purchase food both at the bar and tables. 10 p.m. being the latest the applicants have stated they will stop serving food. It was also confirmed to me personally in a Zoom meeting with the applicants that no individuals would be allowed into Jimmy's after 10 p.m. When asked how this would be policed, I was advised by the door staff. The premises are ideally located to capture large volumes of foot traffic and drinkers. Indeed, the granting of a licence today without alcohol being ancillary to food will actually extend the so-called red zone area beyond its current boundary. Residents are concerned that if a linkage between having a meal and having a drink does not exist, then it is inevitable that Jimmy's will quickly become associated as the go-to place for late night drinking. Jimmy's have stated they intend to be predominantly food-led, but the installation of their window signage in recent days would appear to be in contradiction of this intention. The window advertisements specifically promote rock and roll barbecue and cocktails and cold beers. This is just one incident of numerous contradictions and mismessaging made by the applicants. For example, even in the revised statement made by the founder and director George Craig, speaking to York Mix, said, and I quote, "It will be a pub for music, food and drink lovers." They have also stated in writing by their solicitor that they wish to retain the flexibility for customers to sit or stand at the bar, and they want to retain the flexibility to allow customers to have drinks without necessarily having a meal. Whilst we appreciate what they wish to achieve, it appears that largely it will be at the expense of residential properties just being meters away. Our objection therefore stands and directly relates to the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance. A restaurant does not need an alcohol license until midnight when they intend to stop serving food at 10 p.m. If they are proposing to be a food-led restaurant, any license granted should have a condition that alcohol sold is ancillary to food, especially in a residential area. If the condition of alcohol being ancillary to food is added as a condition in any license granted, we would withdraw any objection to the midnight licensing time on Friday and Saturday evenings. We, that is the local residential population, believe this to be reasonable. In our view, any license granted needs to ensure that this venue can operate only as a food-led restaurant, and any alcohol is ancillary to food without ambiguity. Without such an appropriate license, the level of crime and disorder, public nuisance, public safety, and antisocial behaviour will almost certainly shift from being a possibility into being a probability. Such prospects naturally fuel concern within the residential population which surrounds the venue, and this is the crux of our objection. Finally, the initial correspondence from the applicant's solicitor states, "My clients are aware that the application has caused some concern amongst those who live nearby, and we wish to reassure you that that they are committed to being good neighbours." We were encouraged by this communication, which referred to the applicant's commitment to being good neighbours. On that basis, should the applicants decide to add as a condition to their application that alcohol sold is ancillary to food, or alternatively, they withdraw their application to open until midnight on Friday and Saturday, then we will deem that the applicant's desire to be good neighbours were not simply empty words. That's the end of my statement. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Again, I ask if the applicant has any questions to ask of Mr. Bruce.
No, thank you, Chair. I will just use my summing up to address some.
Okay, thank you. Members, Councillor Hook? No, that's fine. We now move on to each section asking to put in their summaries. Now, I'm assuming, and I'd like it confirmed as we go down. Sorry, I can see Victoria bobbing up.
Sorry, Councillor, it was just to check whether or not any of the other representatives had questions of Mr. Bruce before we move on to the formal summaries.
Okay, does any other representative have a question of Mr. Bruce? Clearly not.
Thank you, Chair.
So the first one on my list for summary, and I'm assuming won't necessarily want to speak, and that is the police. Do the police want to make any comment?
Thank you, Chair. No further comment to what I added earlier, which is in line with what Leslie spoke of, that the reviewed operating schedule, the further operating schedule, additional conditions and the policies given do satisfy the concerns that North Yorkshire Police had. Thank you.
Leslie? Leslie Cook?
I've got nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To Ward Council, I think Fiona's a witness rather than a Ward Councillor today. Any questions that the comments that the Ward Councillors would like to make?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much. I now come to item 27 to invite the applicant to summarise their case. A maximum. Carry on.
Sorry, Chair. We need to go back to the representatives and allow them the opportunity to summarise. So we need to go through them one by one to summarise.
Okay, fine. Well, yes, I mean I've got that down on my list, I think. Yeah.
And then it's the applicant that speaks last with their summary before we move on to the next part. So it's representatives one by one with their summaries, and then it's the applicant with their summary.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
I question any of the representatives wish to make any further sum up their arguments.
No, we don't.
Mr. Bruce?
Well, I will just say that our main objection that remains is one of prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and the prevention of public nuisance. We know from experience of revellers coming along Low Petergate that at times it can be a little unsightly. All sorts of things happening in doorways, and having late night drinking later than the street normally sort of I wouldn't say allows, but the street doesn't have premises where there is late night drinking. That will possibly add to the problem, and that's all I will say at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Christine Potter, would you like to? I should have asked you at the beginning, but I thought you were going to shoot off. So.
No. I can stay a bit longer. No, I've nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We now come to the summary. To summarise the case from the applicant, please. Felicity.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be brief. First of all, I'll just turn to some of the comments that were made. Firstly, by Christine Potter. You heard her say that she acknowledged and welcomed the changes that we've made to the application. We are obviously, though, still an hour apart on Friday and Saturday evenings. In relation to Rebecca Hill's submissions, she again said that she appreciated attempts to negotiate and try and find a way forward here, something that obviously doesn't stop today. If you were minded to grant the licence, those conversations would continue. Because as you've heard from Richard, he's committed to being a good neighbour. I'd ask you to disregard comments regarding that there may well have been more representations had lockdown not been in place. As you know, the matter needs to be determined on the representations and the matter before you. We can't suppose what may or may not have happened if we were in a different time. Rebecca also has a premises licence herself, as will be obvious to you. She has a restaurant herself, which I understand allows alcohol to be sold until midnight, Monday to Saturday. So we're not asking for anything that's later than she's already permitted to trade. In terms of music, there was comment made regarding that at the Zoom meeting, reference was made to an existing speaker system that Café Rouge has. There's no intention to upgrade it or change it. You'll see that it's been widely discussed that we've removed live and recorded music from the application. There's no room for live music to take place or recorded music to take place. You can see from the layout of the premises that it's given over to tables and chairs. If there is music played, it is background only. And if I can just touch on the conditions relating to noise emanating from the premises, they were conditions that we offered. They're relatively standard conditions, which you often see on licenses. Mr. Golightly asked for those to be removed, so we did, but we were prepared to offer them when we applied for the licence, and that still remains the case. But obviously, Mr. Golightly is the expert in the matter when it comes to noise issues. So we took his lead and agreed to remove them. But obviously, if you manage to grant this, then the final version of it falls squarely to you. But I just wanted to make it clear that it wasn't our intention to, or idea to remove them. In terms of the publicity, it does appear to have frightened some people. That wasn't the intention either. The press have apologised to Richard. They saw the way in which their other premises operate and jumped to a conclusion, which we hope we have now addressed by amending the application in the ways that we have. And turning to Steve Bruce's comments, that this place will be the place for late night drinking, that simply can't be the case. 11 p.m. plus 30 minutes in the week, midnight plus 30 minutes at the weekend, with all the conditions that we've proposed, mean that it can't be a late night drinking premises. Yes, there will be some flexibility to allow some people to come in and just have a drink, but to allow it to turn into a late night drinking venue would be in direct breach of many of the conditions that have been agreed. And obviously there are severe penalties for operators who don't adhere to conditions like that. The request that alcohol be ancillary to a meal is a difficult one. And I would submit an old-fashioned concept that would find itself on licenses before the Licensing Act. As I've already explained, my clients would like that little bit.
Could I ask you to start winding up? You've 30 seconds left.
Yeah, thank you. So in summary, we'd ask you to grant the application in its amended form, that being the operating schedule that has met the satisfaction of the Police, the Licensing Authority and the Environmental Health Department. It's not another licensed premises, it's simply the relicensing of an existing premises. And my clients wish to reassure everybody involved in this call that they intend to operate it responsibly and in open communication with those who are currently concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, page 5, paragraph 28, it's now up to members of the subcommittee to ask any questions or seek any clarification or advice from the licensing officer or from the legal team. Councillor Hook. Councillor Melly.
Thanks, thanks, Chair. A couple of things to ask. It's because it's been referenced a few times that this premise is in the CIA, and there's been specific reference to some immediate neighbours that are also licensed premises and that sort of thing, which really just indicates the importance of having a CIA, because all these different premises in close to each other, the whole point is that the impact accumulates. So I was just wondering if I could just ask the applicant just one more time to demonstrate and assure us that the granting of this license wouldn't add to that accumulation effect and that the cumulative impact?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The premises is going to trade predominantly as a restaurant, and there are conditions, as you can see, that have been agreed in front of you. And if you were to grant this licence, it would be a better licence and a more restrictive licence than is currently there. The existing licence currently permits the premises to trade 24/7, obviously not sell alcohol, but it could in theory open till 3, 4 in the morning for non-licensable activities. It's a bit ambiguous, and this tightens the situation up using clear, standardised conditions that the authorities are used to seeing and enforcing, and a clear concept condition that sets out exactly how it's going to trade. The premises is the same footprint as it was before, and it's been licensed for many, many years. This is an attempt to modernise it, whilst reassuring everyone that it will still remain as a restaurant.
Yeah, I noticed in the existing license that there's no restriction on opening hours, which just seems really strange now, doesn't it? Kind of 15 years on, licensing's changed. But as you said, it would only be allowed to be open for non-licensable activities. So there'd be no food, no hot drinks, no alcohol, no music.
No, it could perversely be used for the sale of cold food and drink. People could bring their own potentially, because consumption's not licensable. It could be a 4 a.m. juice bar, for example. I'm not being facetious, but it's very broad and a hangover of 60, 70-year-old legislation, whereas we would hope that this license would be far more suited to the way modern premises operate.
Thank you. Yeah, that clarifies that. My other question, I just wanted some clarification on the licensable area of the premises. So with the application, there were two kind of diagrams, layouts provided. One of them specifically says it's to do with fire safety, and then the other one doesn't. Well, as far as I can tell, it hasn't printed very well. It's come out really small. It, as far as I can tell, doesn't say specifically what it's for, where usually you have to provide with an application a layout of the licensable area of the premises. So I'm assuming that's what we've got on kind of page 39 of the papers. So it includes the ground floor, the first floor, and one of those walls adjoins the hotel next door. I'm still not completely clear what adjoins on the other side. And it also includes the basement, which includes a cellar, a kitchen, a storeroom, staff facilities. I was just wondering why that's included in the licensable area of the premises.
Yeah, Richard will be able to clarify, but as far as I'm aware, it shouldn't be included in the licensed premises. It was simply submitted to show that that is where the services and the ancillary use is, as far as I'm aware. But again, Richard will clarify that there's no customer access to the basement. Licensable activities will take place on the ground floor and the first floor, and then consumption in the external courtyard till 10 p.m. Richard, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We just really wanted to demonstrate that the basement was actually a kitchen and storage and not a music venue.
So you would be happy for that to be excluded from the license,
absolutely,
so that it can't in the future be used to increase capacity? Or,
no, not at all. No, I mean, we're operating as a restaurant. We need to have a kitchen, and for the purposes really of reassuring more than anything, we wanted to demonstrate that that is actually the kitchen and the storage for the business on the ground and first floor.
Okay, and I know you've explained why and in what circumstances you'd like for people to be able to have a drink without food when they arrive and they're waiting for their table or at the end of the night and that sort of thing. But in terms of, I fully believe that you have the best intentions, but in terms of what's actually enforceable under condition, would you be willing to accept a condition that alcohol can only be served with food?
No, it's not practical to do that. Felicity's already outlined exactly why that is. We can't, from a commercial point of view, it would be detrimental to the business if we banned people from coming in a party of 4. Let's say, as Felicity's mentioned, one person doesn't want to eat, they just want to have a drink. And in our opinion, it certainly is just not reasonable to turn people away because of that point. What would you say, Felicity, on that one?
If I may, I mean, that condition has been mentioned. It was mentioned at the meeting that we had last Monday, and I think if we felt that we could agree to it, we would have done, because we really tried to incorporate and listen to the concerns that the residents have had. I think I would say, would the premises be quieter if everyone had a drink? You know, if there were 3 people on a table, 4 people on a table and 3 were eating and 1 wasn't, would the premises be any quieter or well managed or likely to cause crime and disorder because there is just a few people just having a drink? I think the conditions that we've agreed with the authorities demonstrate that the premises can only be a restaurant. It's got to be predominantly food-led. It cannot become or be a vertical drinking establishment. And so if someone, I would say, was sat down and having a drink versus someone sat down and having a meal, I would question whether there would be whether anyone would know whether that would address the licensing objectives any better than the conditions that we've already offered. Yeah, I think I would just say that it's the flexibility that we're striving for, but coupled with the safeguards to ensure that it can't become something that it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to spend a long time deliberating and talking about all the conditions and what's reasonable and what isn't. I just want to make sure that it's all been discussed with you first and you're aware of it and there's no surprises. So I've just thought of something else I was going to ask. It was what I asked about earlier about in the original operating schedule, where it says that no noise shall emanate from the premises nor vibration be transmitted through the structure of the premises which gives rise to nuisance. And it sounds like that's been removed. Now, it's impossible to prevent any noise or vibration from moving through a wall, of course, but it's about it being a level of nuisance. And I'm just wondering what you've looked into in terms of capping decibel levels and in terms of insulation and that sort of thing to make sure that no noise passes through walls which are high enough or at times of day to be considered a nuisance, and why that isn't considered reasonable to enforce or implement.
Yes, I think Richard could come back to you on the structure of the building, but in terms of the condition, we offered it. Unfortunately, Michael's not here to say why he wanted it removed, but I stand by the point we made earlier that obviously ultimately this is a matter for you, and if you felt that condition needs to be reinstated, then we could hardly object to that because we offered it in the first place. But Richard will just jump in.
I think just to clarify the whole noise and nuisance thing, we're not doing anything more than has been in place for decades. We're not increasing the noise. We're not replacing the existing speaker system. It's going to be operating in exactly the same way as Café Rouge has been operating for, I think, 2.5 decades. So we're not going to create any nuisance. I don't believe that the Café Rouge noise levels caused any nuisance to anybody previously. We've certainly not heard of anything from Rebecca or from Christine. So to us, it's business as usual in respect of the noise levels. And we are very responsible. We're not a music venue. I think there's a lot of hang up about us having music venues elsewhere. This can't be a music venue, and we're not going to be a music venue. We just want to operate as a restaurant with music at the same level as Café Rouge. I think hopefully that's clarified it.
Am I allowed to say anything at this point? No.
No, I'm afraid not.
Chair, I think in terms of the procedure, we've missed our opportunity, haven't we, to ask Christine and Rebecca whether they feel there has been noise levels that would constitute a nuisance in the past.
You had every opportunity to question them.
Mm.
I will go off screen, off piste, as it were, because I do believe that it's important that everybody gets a fair crack, and that includes the applicant and the objector. So I will go quietly off track. I'm hoping Victoria won't jump in and stamp on my neck, because one of the things I do believe in these kind of things, for want of a better word, the same as planning, I want everybody to feel that when they go away, they've had a fair crack. So I see Victoria bobbing up. I'm hoping to use the chairman's, what's the word I'm looking for, but I'll take advice from you, Victoria.
It's absolutely clear, Chair, that in paragraph 28, the subcommittee can have this final opportunity to seek clarification from any of the parties on any of the points already raised. So as long as it's not a new point, absolutely, Councillor Melly, if you need clarification, now is the time to ask. Well,
that's the way I was going to go, but slightly different wording. But I was going to go off piste as well. So carry on, Councillor Melly.
Yeah, I mean, I just think because it's a premise that is already licensed, it's an opportunity to hear about how things have worked in the past and make sure that we do take crime and disorder and nuisance into account, which if it was a completely unlicensed premise currently, we wouldn't have that opportunity. So if there are people who've lived in the immediate vicinity or run businesses in the immediate vicinity for a long time, I think it's important to make sure we hear from them and their experience of if noise levels have been high enough to be considered and vibration have been high enough to be considered a nuisance, if they're here and happy to contribute.
I see that Christine's popped herself on. Do you want to answer that question, Christine?
Yes, it was really in response to Richard when he was sort of comparing the old license that Café Rouge had. They had that license, but they didn't actually use it to the extent that they could. With regard to the first floor, they kept the first floor as a function room, so it wasn't used. The main restaurant was on the ground floor. That was the busy part. So at Christmas time, you might get office parties on the first floor. If they needed a bit of overspill, if it was a busy day, they'd use the first floor. But it wasn't used very much, and they certainly didn't use it for as long as a period, so late into the night as they could have done. So, it's just sort of anticipating really the longer hours that noise is likely to go on.
Thank you, but I just want to sort of make the point that we can't always just look into a crystal ball. I think, did you want to say something, Rebecca? And then I'll come on to Richard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just essentially echoing what Christine said. So that first floor room was very rarely used by Café Rouge.
Okay, but but it was available to be used.
It was available to be used.
That's fine.
When it was used.
Yeah, that's fine.
Through the walls, yes.
Yeah. Joe, Richard?
I think all I've got to say is when we took the property on, it was set out with tables and chairs on the first floor. Looking at the used floor, looking at all the equipment set up, to us it was being used regularly. It wasn't just a once a year function room that's being voiced here. We would only be doing exactly what Café Rouge were doing previously. I don't think it's fair to say because they perhaps didn't use it all the time, we are going to make any more noise than they possibly did.
Okay, thank you. I think everybody now has had a fair crack. I don't want to get involved at this point in time in debate. Can I thank everybody for attending this morning? It's much appreciated. And I really mean that. I hope that everybody goes away thinking or feeling that they've had a fair crack of the whip. Now, we're going to withdraw into a private session to come up with the decision. In the papers that you've had, it does say, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning, that if the decision was made today, we'd come back into an open session, but that has proved to be totally impractical. what is intended, that if the decision is made today, I understand, and I think Fiona will probably confirm it, that a decision of yes or no will go onto the website, on the council website this afternoon, and a complete breakdown of the issues on the decision, whether it be yes or no. In other words, a complete response will be given within 5 working days to the applicant. And I'm assuming that the parties will, the representatives will also be advised accordingly as well. If I've missed anything out, Victoria, please let me know. If I've missed anything out, Fiona, please let me know.
You've not missed anything out, Chair. There will be a decision notice that will be published on the website this afternoon. Correct. The decision letter may take a little longer than the 5 working days, but I will do my best, and it will go to the representatives as well as the applicant.
Thank you. Victoria, do you want to make a point?
I've nothing to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. With that, thank you very much, and the meeting is now closed. Oh, can we come back into the